So please, so Mr. McCoy, do you mind telling these people, these fine people who don't know, some of them, who you are and what exactly you do?
Yes. Well, who is one of the clues, and that's a clue.
You don't say.
Yes, I did. I just said it. Anyway, yeah, I'm Doctor Who, was one of my jobs. I was also a trainee priest once. I was going to be the Pope. But instead of that, I became Doctor Who and Radagast the Brown. So, the Old Man of Hoy, and the Fool and King Lear, and hundreds of other jobs.
Awesome. How did you get into the industry?
An accident. I was working in the City of London, which is the industrial, it's the banking area of London, called the City, in the huge City of London. It's a mile square. I was working in there for about 5 years in insurance and reinsurance and banking. I hated every minute of it. And then the 60s came along, which was a great joy to me because it meant you could drop out legally. I mean, well, you know, you could become unemployed, and it was very trendy. You just grew your hair long, became unemployed, smoked a lot of dope, and had a great time. And I kind of did that, really. And I ended up working in this wonderful theatre called the Roundhouse, where it was the centre of theatrical hippiedom. And they needed someone in the box office who could count, a hippie who could count. And I fitted the bill because of my experience in the City of London. So I worked in the box office, and there was another actor there called Brian Murphy, who his wife was assistant administrator. And he used, when he wasn't working in the theatre, he'd come and hang out and collect the tickets I was selling. And one day a director came in and said to Brian, "Yeah, Brian, I got this mad show. Some fuckers let me down." I mean, I never use that language, but this is me quoting someone. You understand that, don't you? Anyway, and he said, "Yeah, I need someone. I got a booking in 2 weeks. Do you know anyone that's, you know, mad enough, young fella?" And Brian said, "Well, that's the guy in the box office. He's completely out of his head." And so he came up to me and said, "Yeah, do you want to join my show?" And I said, "Yeah." And that was it. I became an actor.
That was it, huh?
That was it. I became an actor. I went off to work in the working men's clubs of north of England and pubs, hard places to play, and I learned my craft.
Awesome.
And the spoons.
And the spoons. The floor is now open to questions.
Hi, I'm Anna. I'm from University of Connecticut, Yale campus.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever think you went from a father, priest, to a doctor? Did you ever believe you would get into that position?
No. No, I didn't think I'd become a doctor. Because of the sight of blood and I faint. That's a lie. And actually, it's funny enough, it's my son that faints. I've got a son who doesn't like the sight of blood, and he goes, no, I didn't think anything really. I didn't know what the future was going to be. I had no idea what the future was. All I knew was that I just kind of lived from one day to the other. And things came along, and suddenly Doctor Who came along. Well, when I was young, I saw Patrick Troughton, the second Doctor. That was the first time I ever saw Doctor Who, and I rather liked it and thought it was great. And then I became an actor, as I said, and in those days there was no means of recording any of Doctor Who, and it was never repeated on British television. It just went out on a Saturday, and that was it. If you didn't see it, you didn't see it. And so I missed it because I was working in the theatre most Saturdays. And so when I suddenly, people used to say to me, though, "You could be Doctor Who, you should be Doctor Who." And I think it was partly because I wore a scarf. I always wore a scarf. And it's like, people think, "Oh, you've got a scarf on, you must be Doctor Who." So, and then one day I heard on the news that Colin Baker was leaving, Doctor Who number 6. And so I phoned up my agent and said, "There's a job going at the BBC," and I got it. It became partly because of the hat. I went in with my hat, and the producer said, "Oh, I like that hat. It should be in Doctor Who." And I said, "Well, if the hat's in Who, I'm with it too." And that's how I got the job.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Other questions?
Charles from Inspire the Muse. I was curious, what was it like to portray Stan Laurel and Buster Keaton?
It was great. It was absolutely wonderful. I enjoyed it. It was really weird. Because I haven't trained to be anything. I've done nearly everything. The producer of Doctor Who looked at my CV once and said, "You know, you've done everything in this business except ballet." And now I've had my ankles fused and I can't point, so I can't do ballet. It's the one thing I haven't done. So I've done everything, and untrained, just entered it, and somehow I could do it. when I was a child, I think my father was killed in the war, and so she was a widow. And there was no television then, but there were 2 cinemas in our tiny little town in the Highlands of Scotland. And they showed films twice, 2 nights and 2 nights. So she would go to one cinema one night and then the other one the next, with this little baby in her hand, who was me. And I must have seen, Stan Laurel and Buster Keaton and Ben Turpin. I even played Ben Turpin. He was the one with the cross eyes and the moustache. And Charlie Chaplin, obviously. And all those guys, I saw them. And then didn't realize that until I became an actor at 27, that I was carrying all this baggage. I could do what they did. I mean, that was it. It was there. I don't know where it came from. But then suddenly when someone said, can you fall down those stairs? And I fell down the stairs. Or can you hang off a ladder? Or can you do all... And I did it. I could do it. And the mystery to me is where it came from. And the only reason I can think is, as a child, I was just going, and taking it all in, And bang, there it was when it was required.
Awesome. Any more questions? Yes.
AJ O'Connell, Keith Mall. You've done a lot of things except for ballet. What do you want to do now? There must be something that you still want to do.
Ballet. I don't know really, because I have actually done it all. I've busked. I've been on the street, busking. I've done grand opera. I know everything in between, circus, avant-garde theatre, the lot. Television, film, radio. I did the very first internet drama, which is called Death Comes to Time by Dan Freeman. Those kind of things. And so I don't know, whatever next comes along, I want to do that. Whatever it is, whatever technology brings, to help people communicate and entertain, I'd like to have a go at that. I mean, Shakespeare, I've done most of the full roles. I've played some straight roles. I think maybe at one time I wanted to be the Richard III's hump. Thought that would be a good role.
All right. Questions?
Charles from Star News again. Are you able to discuss your experiences so far with your upcoming movie Slumber?
Slumber, yes, I think so. Yes. It's about not sleeping, actually. It's about the fear of sleeping. It's between that area between awake and sleep, that mysterious area. A lot of creativity comes in that area, but also nightmares. And my character had a fear of sleep and didn't sleep for years and years and years. And that kind of, drove him a bit bonkers. I end up foaming at the mouth, bouncing off the walls and trying to strangle a child. It was great fun.
Thank you.
Awesome. More questions? Well, I have one. Might be a very generic question. Out of all the roles that you've played, which is your favorite and why? Which role do you like portraying the most?
Well, you see, I get that question a lot. And the thing is about being an actor is you fall in love with the role you're playing. That becomes your child, and that's the one. And you kind of, forget the others. You just betray them. This is the one I love now, and this is the one I'm doing. And I think that's necessary as an actor. You kind of commit yourself completely to that role, and you love it and hate it in equal terms until it's finished. And then, like the hussy one is, you go on to the next lover, whatever part that is, really, and you just play that with all your commitment. And
how do you deal with going back to an old one, though?
Oh, well, it's great. It's like going back to, a lover, really. I mean, I did Doctor Who. I've never actually left, because although I'm no longer doing it on television, I do radio, audio versions of it continuously. I'm continuously being Doctor Who and playing and developing and discovering more about this amazing character. I mean, it's one of the great television roles for an actor because you can do anything with it. You can go anywhere with it.
Anywhere, yeah.
You can explore anywhere and everywhere with it. I didn't realize that when I got the job because, as I hinted earlier, I hadn't seen Doctor Who for years because I couldn't And then when I got the job, I had a distant memory of Patrick Troughton. I thought I brought my comedy bag with me. I thought that's what it was about. And then slowly discovered that actually there was much more to this character. And that's why I kind of started to make it darker and more mysterious. I wanted to bring back the who and the question mark. Because 25 years it had been around. Everybody knew everything about it and him. And I wanted to make it all mysterious again. And that's what we were trying to achieve.
All right, thank you.
Have you watched the newer series?
I have popped in and out. Yes. Sadly not physically. I'd quite like to be in it. But dropping hints to the new showrunner. Yes, I have. And it's great. I love it. I mean, it's a great... this last season of Peter Capaldi has been absolutely stunning, I think. Yeah. And Matt Smith is absolutely delightful. When I heard that they were casting a 12-year-old, I thought, gosh, I mean, Doctor Who's old. You know, that's what he was about. He's an old fella. And I liked the idea that we had a superhero who was old. Because, I mean, you've got loads of superheroes that wear their underpants outside their trousers, and they haven't got a brain, but they've got muscles and, all that kind of stuff. It was great to having an older person. And in a sense, for society, it was great. For children growing up, realizing an older person could be a superhero and doesn't have to use his fists, but uses his brain to defeat evil. That seemed to me incredibly important. And so when they cast Matt Smith, and I thought, oh dear, going for young. But then I saw him. I mean, he was amazing, because he is just like an old fella in a young body, really. He's really brilliant. I met him, I was doing a thing called the Five-ish Doctors Reboot, which was a kind of a satire that we all put together because we discovered that none of us were really going to be in the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who, whereas the fans all over the world wanted us to be. So we did our own version. And we were filming down in Cardiff, where they make Doctor Who, and I met Matt Smith for the very first time. And he's this delightful young man, and he came bounding over to me from a distance, and suddenly he seemed to morph gently into an Afghan hound. His ears were flapping, his tail was wagging, and his hair was blowing about, and he put his paws on my shoulders, he licked my nose, and it was just great. And I thought, this is such a nice bloke. But he just reminded me of an Afghan hound, all that kind of way, and energy and love. It's great.
All right, we have time for one more question. No? No? Oh, there you go, right there.
Charles, yet again, what has your experiences been like doing the radio recordings?
Well, Mr. Yet Again, it's been great. I love doing it because I'm 6 feet tall. The sets don't shake. And I'm very young. It's great. You don't have to learn the lines. I mean, that's a brilliant. As an actor, one of the horrible things is learning lines. But you just go in and you kind of read it. I also enjoy it in a way, because in the television one, the reason why the Doctor had a companion, in a sense, was to communicate to the audience what the Doctor was thinking. Because she could say, Doctor, what's happening? What do you think? And he'd explain to her, and then so the audience would realize what he's thinking. Whereas on the audio, you don't need that, because you can go inside the head of the Doctor. A lot of it's internal, because the listener, it's in your head, and so you can be inside the Doctor's head. And I like that kind of exploring the inner kind of workings of his thoughts and stuff. I find that very rewarding.
Well, yes, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Unfortunately, it's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, Mr. McCoy.
Thank you.